Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast, ripping up everything off that. Back to back is not far-fetched. We got a couple of
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I'm your host, guys, as always, Coach Steve. We are back for another fantastic episode tonight. We are talking winning the middle rounds of your football draft. Again, we're a short month away, less than a month now away from the NFL season here, and these redraft drafts are starting to probably start piling up for you. You have them probably schedules and many chats with your with the other draftees, trying to figure out what date to do, because that's what I'm dealing with right now. But a lot of fun things going on right now in the fantasy world here. Preseason week 1 is over. But of course, let me introduce, of course, Coach Tyler to the show. So what's going on, Coach Tyler?
Going on, guys? Yeah, we're through the first full week of preseason, so we're just a couple short weeks away from legitimate football being on our TVs.
Absolutely. It was fun watching a little bit of the preseason, but again, it's still preseason. It's tough to watch an entire game after, the third string players get back in there. But again, some interesting things to watch throughout the weekend, obviously. If you liked watching some of the rookies get some moments there this weekend, it's oddly fun, obviously. So, but again, we're not going to talk about that today, because we could sit here for an hour debating all of the preseason breakdown here for us. So we're going to get into our show today. Trying to think anything really that important. There's a lot of things that are important, but anything majorly important from last week, I don't think so per se.
The only thing fantasy implication-wise I could think of was Rashawn Slater's injury. Slater's left tackle out for the season. Achilles tendonitis, something like that. I might be thinking of Christian McCaffrey's.
No, I think that's what it is, yeah. Achilles. I think it was a ruptured Achilles, yeah.
Yeah. So, Amari Hampton, if Najee Harris can see out of both eyes, and then Justin Herbert, we'll see what that looks like. But that's a very big loss for the Chargers, a couple weeks out from the season starting.
Absolutely. And again, if I'm not mistaken, they did struggle a little bit without Slater. I think it was either in the few games last year, and then the year he actually missed almost the entire season. So definitely some yellow flags when it comes to that. They do have a little bit of better offensive line than they did last year, but still, Slater is one of those fantastic left tackles you hate to lose. Obviously, definitely doesn't bode well for Justin Herbert a little bit, but and Keenan Allen signed. I don't know if we talked about that last week. Keenan Allen also re-signed with the. Did we talk about it or no?
I don't think we did.
Yeah, Keenan Allen re-signed on a 1-year deal. I don't think it's super major, but it definitely, I think, will probably bring Ladd McConkey down a little bit to be more, I think, for me personally, more of the norm where he probably should be, instead of the over and fluctuated ADP that he was having early third, maybe even into the second if people really were liking his status this season. So
it's not a major something, but it's definitely not nothing.
Exactly. That's pretty much the best way you can describe a situation like that, though. But I don't think anything else that happened over nothing too crazy. The Browns released their depth chart, and Sanders is still 4th on the depth chart. I know people were going wild over that. Alexander Madison out for the year with a neck injury. I think Matthew Stafford's trying to practice. Something like that.
Tried today, but he sat today because he didn't feel. I saw something like he threw 60-something passes in their simulated warm up, and then his back wasn't feeling up to it today, and so he didn't practice. So a little scary.
Yeah. Definitely. As we talk about again, we'll talk about that situation, I think, again when we get to our last show of the off season. A little bit, and talk about some players that we have some concerns with and whatnot. So, but yeah, continue to watch preseason. Take for what it is. Don't go nuts, but listen and see who plays when. So that does get important. So until then, we're gonna start talking about the middle round. So if you caught our show last week, you're talking about not messing up the early rounds. Obviously, the early rounds is important because these are your likely star players, and you didn't want to mess them up. But now we are diving into more of the middle rounds, which it can be considered a little bit more of a make or break situation because I think some people have their favorite players that they like at that point. But how do you win that area of the game? And it really depends, obviously, on all your strategies. And we kind of talked about strategies last week here, but we're going to go through the motions once again with each position and kind of talk about some players in the 50 to 100 range in terms of Fantasy Pros ADP, and talk about these guys and whether or not we like them, someone you should consider targeting, and whatnot. So let's get into the quarterbacks to start here. Oh, hold on. Forgot to hit slideshow. There we go. All right, so we're starting off with the quarterbacks, as I mentioned already. These are the middle round QBs, and in this range here, you have Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix, Kyler Murray. He looks a little sad. He probably because he threw that pick over the weekend. Jared Goff and Brock Purdy. Round out the top from the 50 to 100 range in terms of quarterbacks. These quarterbacks are going in that range, and you could say they're round 6 to round 9, 10 range right now. That's where these guys are kind of going in terms of ADP currently right now. Again, that's subject to change a little bit depending on your league and how that is all set up, but these are the guys kind of going around then. So, Coach Tyler, I'll let you start first. Do you believe that one of these guys from this grouping could end up being a QB1 in fantasy, maybe even a top 5 QB this year that you're getting in this range?
Yeah, there's two that I really could see that I would believe in. First, we're going to take the shot with Bo Nix. I want to say he was QB6 last year, if I remember right, with end of season, total points. But they're starting to add a couple weapons around him. He's going to be entering that sophomore season in the Sean Payton offense, and they went from having a honestly forgettable run game to adding 2 players that RJ Harvey is not necessarily a slouch. We got to see a little bit in the preseason. And then J.K. Dobbins, who was, a 1,000-yard rusher last year for the Chargers. So teams aren't going to be able to hone in and focus on Nix with, I'm not going to necessarily call it a two-headed monster, but, a fairly decent run game that projects out to be a lot better than what they had last year. So I think that bodes well for Nix to, continue to climb up. He still has a lot of, sneaky athleticism, a lot of scrambling potential with the ability at the goal line to, punch a couple in. So I see Bo Nix as being able to take that step forward, hopefully not regress, has the addition of Evan Ingram in there, retains Cortland Sutton, who just got a deal. So he's going to be happy and hopefully playing a lot better than he has in the past. So Bo Nix, and then one guy that it's hard to see him in the middle rounds because we think of him as this upper echelon quarterback is Patrick Mahomes. The run game wasn't ideal last year, but the Chiefs didn't necessarily have to make a ton of strides in games because their defense was so good. Now, their defense is still a fairly good defense. I'm pretty sure they're a top 5 ranked defense in the league.
I think they are, yeah.
But there's been a lot of discourse over the last about year and a half, 2 years that, Patrick Mahomes can't do it anymore. They don't need him to throw all that much. And so the Chiefs heard that and went out and got some more weapons for him to throw to, right? Rashee Rice is going to miss some time with the suspension this year. I know we saw Jordan Addison's suspension handed down, so I'm sure we'll see Rashee Rice's over the next couple weeks. But Rashee Rice will miss a couple games, hopefully not the full season like he did basically this past year. Right? You have Hollywood Brown, who is injury prone but can catch a couple bombs if he needs to. Xavier Worthy was coming into his own last season towards the end and through the playoffs. Travis Kelce apparently has that spark back. I guess Taylor Swift isn't as big a distraction this season as she was last year. But they've just got, some added weapons. He's a guy that's done it before, right? I want to say it was his first season as a starting quarterback. He went out and was quarterback 1 with 50-plus touchdown passes. Like, we know that he's a capable person to do it. And it's just, does Kansas City throw the ball as much as they would need to for him to be their volume wise? And I think that this is a year that it could happen. There's been a lot of chatter around the league. Mahomes isn't the MVP. Mahomes can't win it anymore. We saw what happened in the Super Bowl. I think that, there's going to be a little bit playing in Andy Reid's head to say, hey, this is our guy and he's the best person that we would want on the field. We're going to let him go win us games like he needs to.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my pick is Mahomes, personally. And that's kind of how I feel about Mahomes kind of having a rebound season to his career. And we always assume that, Mahomes is just like this amazing quarterback, where I think at some point you kind of look at it like Tom Brady. There was definitely seasons where Tom Brady wasn't like the great fantasy quarterback that everyone was like hoping for, but outside of, continuing to win Super Bowls constantly, Mahomes is kind of in that era of his career right now where they don't need him to do all that, but I think he can still do all that. And I think he can still do all that in a given season there. He probably has his best core pass catchers that he's had probably since Tyreek Hill left, when it was Hill and Travis Kelce. But like you said, Rishi Rice, Xavier Worthy, they have Hollywood, they have Juju, they have Jalen Noel. I want to say Jalen Noel, right?
Jalen Royals.
Jalen Royals, thank you, Jalen Royals. So many were Jalen's. Jalen Royals. So he's got a lot of great weapons there in the run game. It just looks like a mosh pit of a committee that's going to form that no one really wants to be a part of. Maybe more about that with Isaiah Pacheco later. But Mahomes is in an interesting category of his career. As you guys know, I love to do advanced stats and all that fun stuff there. And there's one thing when it comes to veteran quarterbacks that I was doing where in year 9, there seems to be somewhat of an uptake in year 9 when it comes to these fantasy quarterbacks. And Mahomes is heading into year 9 right now. So I think Mahomes has a really good shot to really rebound and potentially still end up being a top 5 fantasy quarterback. Again, you're getting him still on the higher end of these mid-round quarterbacks that we've all mentioned here. He's still like a round 5, round 6 pick there. But again, instead of going to the guys that we talked about last week, Mahomes has that potential to really, I think, still thrive and be someone who can be a league winner in those middle rounds for you. So. And look who decided to join in on the show here. Our guest tonight, guys, Chase Vernon. What is going on, brother?
Dude, what's going on? Sorry to keep you guys waiting. I ended up in a meeting for work, and I could not get out. So I'm happy to be here. It's been an absolutely crazy, crazy day. So I'm happy to kind of sit back and relax with you guys and talk some fantasy football.
Absolutely. Well, let's start you off with some negative here. Get some stress out of your system here. We're talking about mid-round quarterbacks. These are the top 6 quarterbacks that are going that between 50 and 100 in terms of ADP right now.
Yeah.
Which one of them do you believe is the biggest fraud for 2025 that you should avoid probably in the mid-rounds?
So I do think that this is interesting, right? Because, Kyler Murray, right, is somebody that we could easily point to being a potential fraud just because his fantasy output, every year is suboptimal. He's always drafted ahead of where his actual finish is. After like his year 3 or something along those lines. So I would love to say Kyler Murray, but I think that's just too easy, right? That's too easy of an out. I'm actually going to go after Bo Nix on this one.
Ooh.
Yeah. I bet you didn't expect me to say Bo Nix. I'm sure a lot of people just hung up on your podcast, just turned it off.
Especially with Coach Tyler saying he could be a QB1 this year. So I like to see the battle here. So
hey, he was a QB1 this past year, right? The thing was he had the easiest quarterback schedule like there ever was. I don't think they played a good defense all year. I mean, hold on. Let me actually pull this up really quick when I go to check out these Bo Nix stats because, I mean, there's games where he threw for 4 touchdowns, games where he threw for 3 touchdowns. He also left you hanging a few times, and he had a good rushing floor. I actually liked the rushing ability. I did not foresee that translating to the NFL quite like it did. But let me go ahead and let me read off some of the teams that he was a QB1 against last year. We will start with, let's see, Las Vegas, who was in the bottom, I believe, 10 of the NFL in terms of fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. Carolina, who was absolutely abysmal, right? That was his best week by far. You have Atlanta, who was just as bad as Carolina. I mean, these two were like literally back to back. I think they were like 1 and 2 in terms of worst teams up against quarterbacks. You had Las Vegas again, right? Who we already talked about, Las Vegas, and then we had Kansas City in Week 18. So where they were resting, where they're resting their starters. So when we look at some of the tougher teams, such as the Jets, right? He was QB 29. Pittsburgh, right? Who was one of the best teams up against the quarterback, QB 27. Even, Cleveland, who ended up having, I believe, Denzel Ward coming back last year, ended up holding him to only QB 26. He didn't perform well. He did great against bad teams, which is what you're supposed to do, right? But he didn't go above and beyond against good teams, which always worries me in terms of trying to project quarterbacks at the next level. And on top of that, they really didn't help him out at all. I mean, they gave him Evan Ingram, which, he might not even play the full season, right? He's going to end up sitting out at some point throughout the season. So, I don't know. I could be swayed, if we come up with some better numbers than what I've come over. But out of these 6 quarterbacks of Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix, Kyler Murray, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, I have to say one that scares me the most outside of Kyler is Bo Nix.
All right. I like it. Do you like it, Coach Tyler?
He has such an up and down ability. I believe in him just because I feel like the Sean Payton offense is going to be easy enough for him to, go out there and put up sustainable numbers. Obviously, an easy schedule doesn't hurt as a rookie, but we'll see what, like I said, improved run game projected wise. Adding Evan Ingram to give him a consistent second pass catcher there, because Javonte Williams is gone, and I'm pretty sure he was our second receptions.
He was, yes.
Broncos, if I remember right. So, as long as he's healthy, a consistent second target after Courtland Sutton. I could easily see him having a sophomore slump and crumbling, but at the same time, he could just do exactly what he did last year and be, a top 5-6 quarterback just off of consistency.
All right. I respect it.
We saw a quarterback do something very similar over there with the Chargers. Came out firing from his rookie season because he had a really, really cake schedule that first year. And then, they beefed up the defenses. I think, we could see something similar. But once again, it's tough to bet against a guy that you want to root for. That also has a rushing floor, too.
That is fair. All right, let's get over to our next section here. We're talking about the dual backfield running backs. Now, a lot of running backs we're going to talk about here, but there's 2 backfields that have duos going in that 50 to 100 range. And you're looking at the Minnesota Vikings backfield with Aaron Jones coming off a really solid season last year with the Minnesota Vikings. You have Jordan Mason, who's now his backup or 1B potentially in the offense now, who was traded over this offseason. You have the Giants with Tyrone Tracy looking potentially now like potentially the RB1 there. Cam Scadaboo obviously is the young rookie that was drafted who a lot of people also seem to really like a lot. And then you have the Steelers backfield with Jalen Warren, who looks to try to finally be the starter in this backfield, but a young rookie called Caleb Johnson is going to make that very hard for him to happen this year. So since Chase, you are our guest, how are you handling these 3 backfields, and which one are you going to go after if you want to?
I mean, the Steelers told us what they want to do, right? They trade away Pickens. They didn't go out and grab DK Metcalf, but, they add running backs in the draft at a higher clip. They want to run the ball. I don't love this, but I feel like Aaron Rodgers needs a strong support system. And instead of going after both, man, I almost want to fade Caleb Johnson to an extent. We know that Aaron Rodgers does not like rookies. Like, he just doesn't like rookies. We've seen it time and time again where there could be a first or second round rookie, and he just doesn't – Aaron Rodgers just doesn't give him a look. He wants the guys that are seasoned vets. He wants guys that he can trust. Saw a very similar thing with Tom Brady, back years ago. So it could be the Warren show pretty much all season. I like targeting him. But I don't think you can go wrong with any one of these backfields. I think that Tyrone Tracy is going to be a monster. Scadabo is he'll be there, but I think Tyrone Tracy's probably got a target. He's getting the targets. Aaron Jones, he does best when he has a 1-2 punch. We saw it with Green Bay when he was the workhorse. He always got hurt. He's better as a 1-2 punch type guy. And I know that we want volume and we want to give him a ton of work, but with Aaron Jones, it's like the guy that I don't want to give too much work for. So it's really tough for me to pick between all these backfields. I think that
you can choose none. That's an option.
I like all three of these. I think that they're not bad. I mean, it really just depends on ADP at this point. Like Aaron Jones is probably going way earlier than anybody else on this list. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He is 66 and Caleb Johnson is 69.
Oh, is Caleb Johnson that high?
Yeah.
Yes. For redraft, I'm not touching him. I mean, if we're talking like dynasty and stuff, I love Caleb Johnson. But for redraft, I'm not touching Caleb Johnson this year. He's not going far enough back. Where's Tyrone Tracy sitting at?
Tracy's at 81. Jalen Warren's at 83. Jordan Mason's at 94. And Cam Scadaboo's 99. He's falling a little bit.
Give me Tyrone Tracy and Jalen Warren all freaking day at that ADP.
I like it. Coach Tyler, how do you feel about these backfields?
Yeah, I like it. I've been a big Jordan Mason guy this offseason, so it's really hard for me not to pick him right here, both based off of ADP and just the projected role that not even the fantasy community is projecting, but what his head coach said basically from the moment they got him, right? He's going to be the goal line and short yardage back. Aaron Jones obviously was worn down a lot last year, but he was not overly efficient in the red zone. He wasn't overly efficient at the goal line. And so, there's a chance that Jordan Mason is just one of those guys. He doesn't need to have a ton of volume, but we've seen a recent trend of your Jamal Williams and your Raheem Mosterts, which I think Jordan Mason is better than both of those guys whenever they have these seasons, but they go out and they're a goal line back and they get 20-something touchdowns a season just from being the goal line back. That works for me, right? Especially if I'm getting him below the starter who's going to, get all this work between the 20s and he's going to have the targets, but he's going to have to do a little bit more work to put up 6 points on the board for me than Jordan Mason would. I really favor the guys that are going later in ADP just because we see a lot of kind of the question of what the backfield looks like, right? So we see 1A, 1B with the Vikings. They've already said that. We'll probably see 1A, 1B with the Steelers. There's a chance that Johnson is slower to go. I think more people are kind of shying away from him, which is crazy that his ADP is as high as it is. But I think people are starting to kind of see the physical traits and, hey, he's just a big back, and that's what it is. And with the Giants, I mean, that offense doesn't really project to be all that good. So I'm not overly excited to draft either of these running backs. I would probably prefer Scadaboo just because he has the lower ADP. But at the same time, the Vikings offense should, if J.J. McCarthy is what he's advertised to be, they should be good. So I'm good with either of these backs, especially if I know that Jordan Mason is getting those goal line touches. The Steelers are going to be halfway decent as long as Aaron Rodgers can be healthy. And Arthur Smith wants to run the ball, 400 times during the season. So both of them are going to get their work.
That's true.
The Giants are going to still be playing from behind. I know they got Russ. I know they got Jameis. I know they got Jackson Dart. I don't think that they've bolstered the offense enough. I think they have, a fairly decent defense, but I don't think they've bolstered the offense enough to not be playing from behind to the point that they're not they're going to be able to run the ball. I think Tracy does get the targets for the most part out of the backfield, but it needs to be seen. Obviously Russ is supposed to be the starter. If Jameis is out there, he's not throwing it to the running back. He's going to throw it to Malik Neighbors 70 yards downfield every time. So I really trust the offenses that are supposed to be good when it comes to duo backfields. But also, if it's supposed to be a 1A, 1B, and it's not just a handcuff situation, I'd rather take the guy I'm going to get cheaper and take a shot on, maybe a better receiver in this range than what I'd be getting running back wise.
Chase, were you gonna say something? I felt like you were about to say something.
Yeah, I got another duo for you that I don't think people are seeing right now, and I'm kind of hoping that it actually ends up this way. It could be a trio, but the Dolphins with A-Chain and I want to see Ollie Gordon. Man, he looked really good in preseason. I know he was playing against backups and stuff, but like this is a guy that crushed it. It reminds me a lot of Chuba Hubbard. You guys remember when Chuba Hubbard the year before he came out? Everybody had him as like the top dynasty running back, and he had a really down year in his. I think it was either his junior. I think it was his junior year, maybe his senior year. No, his senior because I think it was during COVID, right? Mm-hmm. So, anyways, he had a really down year, and the analysts were like, "Oh, he's not. He didn't have it. We didn't see what he was showing us before. He lost it. Whatever." Man, you don't lose it when you're at that level at that age, right? Like you can have a bad season, you can have a bad. Time where a bad series of games where you're not seeing the holes or the gaps and things are moving too quickly for you. And it just takes time to get readjusted and remember how to play football. I mean, Ollie Gordon was at the top of everybody's, maybe not everybody's draft boards, right? But he was at the, towards the top of people's dynasty rankings prior to this past season. And now all of a sudden, because he fell a little bit in the draft and he had a little bit of a rough year, now he's like, non-existent. He's on the waivers for most people in Dynasty. I think that Ollie Gordon is a goal line back and is going to be the goal line back, and he might even take some work between the 20s on first downs so that they're not wearing A-Chain down.
No, I love that, honestly. Yeah, I know. I like what I was able to see out of him this past weekend here. Jalen Wright, I feel so bad. Just did not look good on the 4 straight carries on the goal line, but the Bears' defense is pretty tough now. It seems like, especially that front seven. So
I'm just hoping they don't go with Alexander Madison. That
he's out for the season now.
Yeah, he's out.
Is he?
Neck injury. He's out for the season. Yeah.
Did he got hurt at the end of the game then? Huh?
He did get hurt. Yeah.
I missed it. I was watching it on my phone, so I didn't catch like the last quarter. I couldn't watch it, man. Dude, Quentin Ewers. God, that was. Dude, he was 4 for 15, which is absurd. But 3 of the completions were either behind the line or within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage or something. That is wild. He had 1 completion out of 15 attempts that was beyond 2 yards downfield. I couldn't watch it. I did walk away. It was terrible.
It's literally 2 or nothing. So, all right, let's get over to our next grouping of running backs here. We have a lot of other running backs here, kind of put these guys kind of all together because they kept the duos together. But in this grouping here, these are guys that are going in that 6 to 8, 6 to 9 range, wherever you want to call it. Dave Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, who kind of shot up ADP over the last week, surprisingly. Travion Henderson, the guy who's probably not going to be in this tier probably much longer after his showing this past weekend. DeAndre Swift's on there twice. I don't know why. Isaiah Pacheco, who I mentioned earlier. Tony Pollard, who might be looking up now after Tajay Spears' injury. Brian Robinson Jr. I don't know. I can't think of his name right now. Quinshon Judkins. Thank you. Quinshon Judkins, who is falling down. Obviously, we all know why. He probably won't be drafted in this range. And you probably should not be drafting him if you're drafting this week, and do not draft him in this range whatsoever. But he's right now in ADP still there. And then Travis Etienne. Who am I missing? Who was the one guy that I missed from this group here that... I don't remember now. I guess
it twice.
Maybe? Oh, it's RJ Harvey. That was the other one. I don't know how I missed him, but Harvey, I put in Swift twice, but Harvey's the other one that's in this grouping. So, Chase, can you trust any of these guys as your RB1 for the season?
Yo, Henderson looks so sexy. Oh my God. That dude looked so good. I sent out trade offer after, and I liked Henderson. He was my second favorite running back out of this class. And then he ended up going to the Patriots, got a little bit of hate for it. And then Omarion Hampton, who I love his situation, right? And then Najee Harris, doing whatever's going on over there. So I did bump Omarion Hampton above Travion Henderson, and I regret that entirely. I wish I would have traded back and the 104, 105, picked Henderson, and let Omarion Hampton go to somebody else. And I like I said, I like Hampton. I think he's good, but Henderson looks so good. He looks so strong, right? He looked so sleek. He looked fast. He looked ferocious. I mean, this dude, he reminds me, and I'm not doing like a straight up comparison, right? but it reminds me of like where Jahmyr Gibbs was when he came in, to the league, where people were a little bit unsure of him because of the David Montgomery situation. And now, Jahmyr Gibbs is essentially a top 3 fantasy running back for Dynasty. So if you can get Henderson right now, do it. And it could be for redraft. It could be for Dynasty, whatever. Get him on your roster.
I agree.
And then I actually like Etienne.
I don't hate it.
Yeah, I think Etienne is in a great spot. I think that he's in a phenomenal spot to really excel in this Spencer Cohen offense. And I know that he's getting a lot of hate, and I know that he's getting a lot of pushback, but, I mean, Tutin's not the guy. Like, he might have a couple big runs, but he's not going to be carrying a full workload, right? We know what Tank Bigsby is, which is, the next Alexander Madison, maybe a little better than Alexander Madison, but, the guy that's going to underwhelm in a starting role. He's fine as a backup, but he's going to underwhelm in a starting role. And then Etienne is sitting there looking pretty as the starting running back in a brand new offense, right? With a wide receiver duo that's going to force safeties out of the box because they're going to throw right over top of them, right? Yeah, Brenton Strange, who is able to take those underneath passes. So you're going to pull the linebackers out by moving him out to the flats and in the hooks. Dude, it's going to leave Etienne wide open to run up the middle probably close to 15 times a game. And I think he could easily get to 85 yards and a touchdown with a couple receptions added onto that. And I know that's not like crazy numbers, but from round 6 to 8, yeah, that's starting running back numbers to an extent. Low end, right? Like he'll be a back end, RB1, high end RB2. But I mean, I just don't see how it can't happen unless he's like completely washed.
No, that's fair. And he was, if I'm not mistaken, he ran with the whole first team offense in their preseason game anyway, and no one else got any touches. So, Coach Tyler, over to you. Who are you actively avoiding in this area? Let's go to the negative here. Who are you trying to stay away from these running backs? And obviously, remember, RJ Harvey is in here, not two DeAndres. So.
Yeah, really, the obvious answer is Judkins. One guy that I feel like I've seen his name propped up, it may just be all the fantasy Twitter guys that I end up seeing on my feed. But I feel like a lot of people are really high on Brian Robinson Jr. And he's just a guy that I am not necessarily very high on, especially with the situations of multiple guys being drafted around him. I just don't see the hype. I know a lot of people are turning towards Vegas and, the analytical side of the Commanders are projected for this many points by Vegas's standards, and Jaden Daniels is only supposed to account for this many, and so Brian Robinson is going to have this red zone efficiency monster season where he's going crazy, and so you need to go grab him. I know the Commanders added Laramie Tunsil to their offense, but
he's old.
Yeah, he's old. He's going to give them about 17 false starts, I can tell you that as a Texans fan. But I've just seen a lot from Brian Robinson throughout his career. He obviously has, some spike weeks. He has some, 50, 60 rushing yards and a touchdown, and then a couple games with some long receptions. But for the most part, you look at most of his career, and you look at his career last year with the same coaching staff and for the most part the same offense. And I think that I wouldn't call it his absolute ceiling, but he put up just about 800 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground and then 159 receiving yards. I feel like that's kind of his ceiling, and that's without, factoring in, obviously Austin Eckler was there last year and he's going to take most of the receiving work, so that doesn't really affect Brian Robinson because that wasn't his game, right?
Right.
But you have young guys like Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols that people are excited to see. You have Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who is, one of the darlings of the late round sleepers in fantasy.
Yeah.
And then you have the team adding the wide back Deebo Samuel, who, in theory, could reprise that backfield role and take some of those goal line touches that Brian Robinson is supposed to so valuably have. So I just see, Brian Robinson as what he is, and I feel like a lot of people saw the Jaden Daniels offense work last year, and they saw, all this excitement and shootouts and all this going on, and now they're saying, oh, he's going to take a step forward, so the whole offense has to do it. And I don't think that Brian Robinson Jr. is necessarily a part of that step forward if there is one to be taken.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I think Brian Robinson. I don't know why he's going as early as he is. I mean, I don't really see the upside. He really hasn't shown to me anything in the last 3 seasons in the league that he is someone that you want to trust, even as an RB2, let alone an RB3 right now. There's just a lot of heads in that backfield there, and then offense.
It's like a 30% snap share too, which is even worse.
Right.
Like it's like he's not getting on the field, and if you're not getting a touchdown from him, you're probably not getting even an RB2 week because he's putting up, 65 yards rushing on 15 carries, right?
That's
and then,
right.
like, that's pretty much his stat line. Like, it's not a bad stat line overall. Like, 15, it's like 4.5 yards per carry or something, or 4.1. Like, that's not terrible. Like, you want a little more than that, but it's not bad. It's just he doesn't get enough high-value touches until they try to pound it in. But if you don't get a touchdown from him, you're not getting anything. Hell, he had a game last year where it was like he had like 7 carries for like 9 yards and 2 touchdowns, and it put him into the conversation. I think it put him at like RB15 or something like that, or RB12, somewhere in that range.
Right.
But without those 2 touchdowns, you would have lost that week. And that was, I think, towards the tail end of the season when you need those wins to come through. So I agree with you guys.
Yeah.
Pacheco scares me too.
Yeah, Pacheco with his injury history and the fact
he runs
that
violently, man, but he's not durable.
No.
Yeah, he's just not durable. Like he makes it look so difficult to run 10 yards because of how angry he's running. But the guy's like 5'10", 215, and he's not built like a brick house. Like he's not Derrick Henry, so like, yeah, I don't like it. I mean, he came back after getting injured, and I don't think he played over a 35% snap share for the whole rest of the season. They liked Kareem Hunt more.
I really think this offense is going to turn back into a passing offense, and the run game kind of falls apart.
Yeah, they didn't do anything to help the run game. They added passing weapons, though. I'll tell you that.
They sure
added
did.
a ton of passing weapons. I like Patrick Mahomes this year. I know everybody's like down on him.
We were just hyping him up before you got on, so yeah.
My bad.
No, I'm glad you're on the same page with us, so I love it.
I like Patrick Mahomes this year for like redraft leagues.
Absolutely. I mean, the only person I just want to mention now is Tony Pollard. I think has a chance for early on success. So if you're looking for a running back that can give you that early on success in your season, depending how you strategize your team with young players. I mean, Tyjae Spears, I believe it's somewhat of a high ankle sprain. I don't know what the severity of the high ankle sprain, but this offensive line really got rebuilt this offseason here, and we saw when Tony Pollard has the rock to himself and is healthy at least. And he can produce for fantasy, so he's definitely someone I'm okay taking as my RB3, RB2 if you plan on kind of doing like a 0 RB and getting a lot of young backups. Because if you guys remember last year, like how many elite running backs got hurt last year? Not many. I mean, I think Aaron Jones put up 1,100 yards, but his fantasy points per game was like RB20. Like there were so many running backs that were producing last year, or not really, outside of Christian McCaffrey, obviously. But we kind of knew that prior to the season he was hurt. But a lot of running backs stayed healthy last year. I think Tony Pollard could be that like 0 RB strategy where you get him as your RB1 and he can kind of keep you afloat until those backup running backs kind of start flourishing later in the season.
I think he won me a league last year. I'm like 95% sure that Tony Pollard ended up winning me a league. What was his output for that stretch? That wasn't great, but he got me in the playoffs. So
I think it was like I think he helped you get to the playoffs, but his playoffs were not as good, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they weren't. But he gave you flex numbers the whole season.
Yeah, let's see. Hold on.
He didn't kill you. There was only 1 week where he might have killed you, and that was week 3. All of the other weeks,
I mean, 100 yards in week 12 and 14, like, kind of helped you make the playoffs to some extent.
Yeah, he did have a couple of bad ones, but it wasn't as bad as I've seen from starting. He wasn't as bad as Brian Robinson.
Right, no, absolutely. And the offense is supposed to be better in Tennessee now, so, I mean, Cam Ward looked decent out there, so. Let's get over to the wide receivers now. These are the earlier round 5, round 6, 4 to 7, wherever they kind of fall in your ADP or your drafts. But that's the Cortland Sutton, who I think is in the top 50 now in terms of ADP. Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers, Rishi Rice, I believe that is, or no, Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
Worthy, thank you. Jameson Williams, Ted McMillan, and George Pickens. No, it's DK. God, I can't think of it. Is that Pickens?
That is
Is it Pickens?
Yeah,
I remember.
Pickens,
I don't remember what I. Hold on, let me look at the ADP I have. Yeah, that's Pickens. I guess I didn't. I got lazy and didn't want to find a photo of him in a Cowboys uniform. So, but yeah, Cortland Sutton, Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers, Xavier Worthy, Jameson Williams, Ted McMillan, and George Pickens follow up this next round 5-6 range of wide receivers. So Chase, I'm gonna let you kind of talk. Gonna go with a negative aspect with you. Who's someone in this range here that you
Pickens.
are avoiding in fantasy?
Frickin' Pickens, man. I'm avoiding him like a plague. I don't understand. Dak Prescott likes open receivers. He doesn't throw contested balls. That's why CeeDee Lamb and him paired up so well, is because Lamb creates separation, especially when he's in the slot. But ever since Michael Gallup back, 5 years ago, where Dak Prescott would throw him open along the sidelines, running a go route, he hasn't targeted receivers that are covered. And so he has to either trust Pickens, because Pickens can't separate. And Pickens does make some crazy catches, right? Like craziest catches since Mike Williams. But he's not good for fantasy. I mean, Pickens overall, I think gave us maybe 3 startable weeks last year, the entire season. And I understand he didn't have a good quarterback, to go to, but he was also the primary option. So he got peppered with targets. Now he's going to have to compete with targets with CeeDee Lamb, right? Jake Ferguson, a handful of other guys who, the Cowboys like, right? And they have 4 running backs that are going to end up all getting touches as well. I don't think that they want to go out and throw the ball 50 times a game. I could see 40 passes, but I think we're going to hover around 35, 30 passes a game. At low completion rates, right, or low catch rates, I should say, for contested catches. Say George Pickens comes with 5 catches a game, if that, maybe 4 catches a game. He might get you a touchdown, but dude, betting on a guy like that in 5 and 6 doesn't make any sense to me. Right. And then Zay Flowers, I think he's blah. I like him.
He's such an average for fantasy receiver, but he's a good receiver.
Yeah, and in rounds 5 and 6, you're taking shots on guys like the Jameson Williams, like the Xavier Worthies, even like Cortland Sutton, who can finish as a wide receiver 1 potentially, right? Or give you majority of weeks that are there. I'm going all in on guys like that in these rounds. And Zay Flowers is good, right? But that's not going to win you a fantasy championship. You're not going to take home the Lombardi or the trophy at the end of the year with a Zay Flowers, level finishes in the playoffs. He's fine for in season; he'll get you there, but you're not targeting guys that are fine in rounds 5 and 6.
Yeah, he's like a 10-point guy, and then he'll get you 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns throughout the season, and have some of those little spike weeks. But he's an average guy. I get it.
Yeah, and they don't want to feature. They don't need to feature the wide receivers there, right? Because they got Lamar Jackson, they got Derrick Henry. They just don't need to do it. So I'm fading Zay Flowers just because he's blah. I don't see him fit. There's not a single range of outcomes where he could finish as a wide receiver 1, and I want to try to find a wide receiver 1 in this range, or a guy that has potential to be wide receiver 1.
That's fair. Coach Tyler, on to you. On the flip side of things, on a more positive note, which one of these guys do you think could exceed expectations?
Yeah, I've been very vocal about my love for Teteroa McMillan this offseason, and I might be a little bit on fire because of the first preseason game and what we saw out of him and Bryce together. But I love T-Mac. I think he's going to be the featured guy in that offense. There's no reason he shouldn't be. We've seen him run past guys. We saw him run a couple crisp routes with Bryce Young, nailing him on one of them on an in route. And then if you watch that target in the end zone, it's one of the best anticipatory throws I think I've seen from a quarterback. And I don't even think T-Mac knew that Bryce Young was that good to put it on him right as he made that break. But I think he's the feature guy in that offense. One guy that I'm excited about is Jameson Williams. this is a coaching staff that has, talked very highly of Jameson Williams since he came into the league, and it's been, kind of a slow start. We've seen a little bit more out of him last year, but not Ben Johnson calling plays means that there's a lot more opportunity in the pass game, right? Ben Johnson was one of the biggest advocates on top of Dan Campbell of the, double-headed running game. And we're going to run the ball down your throat, and then we'll hit Amon-Ra on a couple slant routes, and then we might take a shot every once in a while to one of these receivers and play Sam Laporta over the middle. But we're going to focus on being a running team. And I think that Jameson Williams has the ability to break out this year. People forget how good of a receiver he truly is. He has great size, at least lengthwise. He's not necessarily the heaviest guy, but go back and watch his tape at Alabama. Obviously, Alabama, very nice, friendly place to play for a lot of star receivers, at least during the Saban era. But he was torching SEC talent left and right, guys that he's going up against in the NFL right now. And he had the slow start. He had the torn ACL in I want to say it was the national championship or the semifinal game that basically took away his rookie season. Came out and had, a couple end arounds or something. And then last year we got to see him for the most part for a full season, and we started to see some growth and see him actually put some production on the field. And so he's a guy that I see with the new coordinators coming in, being a guy that they look for a couple more explosive plays instead of relying on the trick plays, and being a guy to come out of these rounds that maybe finishes higher than his ADP.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of torn on Jameson Williams because I feel like a regression is coming with that Lions offense. I think I've mentioned this the last 3 episodes. I'm just down on the Lions offense, so I'm really torn on what to do with a guy like Jameson Williams. Even Xavier Worthy, depending on what happens with Rishi Rice, if he gets suspended prior to the start of the season there. Those are 2 guys for me that are, I feel like, wild cards where I think they could go either way, where I think a lot of the other guys, you kind of know what you're going to get probably from them more than likely. I think the expectation is there. That's kind of how I see this grouping of wide receivers.
Yeah, I think that with Todd Morton coming in from, Denver, right, where they actually did attempt downfield passes, unlike the Lions, who really didn't push the ball downfield at all because they didn't need to, right? I actually like this setup, and I like that there's going to be regression in terms of the offense, right? Because you're going to have longer third down situations. You're going to have more scenarios where Jameson Williams will get forced to be involved, where he didn't have to last year, right? Because they didn't see third down. And if they did, it was like third and short, So I just think we're going to see a lot more opportunities for Jameson Williams. I like it. I also like Xavier Worthy a lot, too.
See if Jared Goff can step up to the occasion. All right, let's get over the next set of wide receivers. The round 6, round 7, because again, some of these guys are in round 6. So it's very hard to break up these wide receivers for this week here. But in this round 6-7 range, you're looking at Travis Hunter, Calvin Ridley, my boy Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Jerry Jeudy, Chris Godwin, Jordan Addison, and Rome Odunze. And this, honestly, I really like this grouping of wide receivers overall. I feel like there's a lot of great talent here. Obviously, there's some guys dealing with injuries like Chris Godwin, who we don't know if he's going to be ready for the start of the season. Obviously, Jordan Addison is suspended for the first 3 games. But a lot of these other wide receivers, I feel like this is a great range to get your wide receiver to, because I think there's upside with a lot of these guys here. Jason,
I would have said go draft a running back during this round.
Oh, okay. Well, then do you want to be the negative guy? You can be the negative guy. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I will say that I like one player in here, and that's Rome Odunze. I think that he's a safe bet, and I think that he's going to crush this year with Caleb Williams. I know that there's a lot of targets to go around, but I think that he showed enough to where Ben Johnson can really get him involved as the primary pass catcher. And I don't think Ben Johnson's going to be able to run the ball as much as he wants to. So it's going to, once again, put it into third and long situations where Rome Odunze is going to thrive. And I also like Waddle a little bit too. I think Waddle's okay.
Well, outside of that, what's the negative on some of these guys?
Jerry Jeudy without Jameis Winston, right, was complete trash. So maybe Shedeur Sanders, whoever ends up starting. Keep in mind, the first 4 games for the Steelers or for the Browns are brutal. So likely whoever starts the season isn't going to be the quarterback.
Joe Flacco.
Going on. Yeah, it's likely going to be Joe Flacco to start, and he'll probably make it 2 or 3 games. They'll put in what's his name? Kenny Pickett, and he'll suck for 2 or 3 games, and then they'll end up putting in one of the rookies once they start the season 0-4. But like maybe sure Sanders can go off with Jerry Jeudy. I don't see that happening. I mean, Jameis Winston was literally throwing a bucket balls, like, just throwing it up for Jerry Jeudy to go grab, even in double coverage. And Jerry Jeudy thrived with that, of course. Most wide receivers would. So I really don't like Jerry Jeudy. I think he's got a really low floor. Chris Godwin, we don't know if Emeka Egbuka is going to end up carving into that slot role and force Chris Godwin on the outside. And we know Chris Godwin does not do well on the outside. We watched it at the start of his career, and we watched it a couple of different seasons as of late where he gets pushed to the outside, and his efficiency in terms of targets, it goes down significantly. So I need Chris Godwin playing the slot, and I don't think that Emeka Egbuka is going to be used on the outside very often. So it really just depends on who ends up getting that third receiver role when Chris Godwin is ready to go. But it worries me. It worries me. Calvin Ridley, I've never liked Calvin Ridley. I missed out the so 1 year that he had a good season, but I'm not big on Calvin Ridley. I do like that, Cam is there, and he's likely going to get hyper targeted, but it's just Calvin Ridley. He's just going to catch the ball and then fall over. Travis Hunter isn't going to end up he'll play, 50, 60% snaps here on offense if we're lucky. Maybe 70. And maybe he's hyper targeted when he's in the game. Maybe, but I don't really see that being, a safe bet on a receiver at that point. Jordan Addison suspended. I'm not even a big Jordan Addison guy. But he's suspended. Chris Olave hasn't been able to stay healthy, and these concussions now, like when you start seeing a player get multiple concussions, we start seeing them repeat themselves, and Olave really worries me in terms of that. I can't get behind any of these guys outside of like Roma Dunze that I would feel comfortable with. Jalen Waddle is okay, but yeah.
Okay, I like 4 of I like half the guys there. That's what I should have said. I like at least half the guys there. But Coach Tyler, over to you. This kind of running back to a little bit of a positive note. Who is someone you're most interested in this grouping here?
Yeah, definitely Roma Dunze. Just the reports out of camp, he's supposed to be the guy for Ben Johnson, and we've seen what happens with a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown when you're Ben Johnson's guy. You immediately rocket to fantasy football stardom. So I like Roma Dunze there. And really, one person that's been catching my eye has been Jalen Waddle. I feel like it's gone kind of under the radar, but Tyreek Hill somehow popped up on the injury report with an oblique injury and hasn't practiced for about the past week. Tyreek Hill, when healthy, is one of the most dynamic receivers in the league. But the problem he's had over the last few years is the being healthy part. And so if we're already starting to see, soft tissue injuries popping up, and an oblique is not necessarily something that you can go without whenever you're making these cuts and having to contort your body to try and make a catch. Jalen Waddle really intrigues me if Tyreek Hill, if this injury continues. I know people are planning drafts right now. If you've gone a week or two and there's still no word on Tyreek Hill making any kind of return, Jalen Waddle shoots up my draft board because he becomes really the only target in that Miami offense that's not named Devon Achane. And so I like Waddle as is, but I also really like Waddle if Tyreek Hill is going to miss any time, especially with something that could so easily linger.
Yeah, Waddle just hasn't been good, and really you're betting on Tua more than you're betting on Waddle at this point, right? Because without Tua, you're screwed. Like you are. It doesn't matter if Tyreek Hill is out there or not. Waddle doesn't do well when he gets peppered with targets unless Tyreek's out there. But especially when Tua's out, like that's
he's the concern for Miami.
He's off the board for me if Tua's out, like because he's not gonna fall to where I need him to fall to feel comfortable taking him. He had 2 games, maybe 1 game as a wide receiver 1 last year. I think he had 1 game as a wide receiver 1 last year.
Maybe 2.
We'll say 3. Let's just give him 3. I don't think he had 3. I think he had 1, and it was towards the end of the season. But let's just say that he had 3. That doesn't make me feel comfortable as my wide receiver 2 or even my wide receiver 3 on my team. I don't want to start that guy at any point. I think he had like 1 wide receiver 2 finish, and all the rest were outside of like the top 20, 24, or something like that. He did not have a good. What's up?
Probably 2 games. He had 2 games over. If you're looking at PPR, he had 2 games over 18 fantasy points.
Let's give him 3. Let's just give him 3 of wide receiver 2 number and 3 wide receiver 1 numbers. 6 weeks of a wide receiver 1 or 2 is not good enough to be a starting wide receiver on my roster. So I like Waddle. Like I think that Waddle could have a great year, but you're betting on Tua. So, I'd probably draft Tua at that point or acquire him to stack, because your team's either going to be like fire, right? Where it was like fucking putting up, QB1 numbers, or he's going to be hurt and Waddle's going to be out and your team's going to suck.
That's true. All right, over to our last grouping of wide receivers, that 7-8 range, maybe 9, depending on, again, your league format and all that crap there. But in this grouping here, you have
I like these guys.
A plump-looking DJ. Oh my God, Deebo Samuels, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Juwan Jennings, Jacoby Myers, Jalen Reed, Khaled Shakir, and Ricky Pearsall. I don't know why I couldn't think of anyone's name when I'm looking at them. To me, this group just like the top half is like old guys. Then you got some injury guys, and then you have one guy that for me is like a real I'm excited about this year. That's kind of how I feel. But Chase, I'll let you start off strong because you said you do like these guys here. So talk about some of the guys you do like in this range here.
Well, this is where Zay Flowers belongs, right? Like he belongs right here to Khalil Shakir. Like, as a safe guy, like Khalil Shakir last year ended up putting up, what was it? I think he had like 1 or 2 wide receiver 1 numbers, which we just said we didn't like, but that was a couple rounds earlier. But the thing is like he didn't give you anything worse than a wide receiver 3. I think he had like 2 games the whole season where he was worse than a wide receiver 3. So he's giving you starting numbers as a flex play, right? And he's falling into the 8th round, and people are taking him as like a 4th wide receiver, and he would be my 3rd in many cases.
You're not concerned with the injury?
I mean, all players end up getting injured, as the season goes on. If I'm betting on injury for redraft leagues, then you're probably not going to win. If you're avoiding players for injury, if you're avoiding like Christian McCaffrey, right, and Cooper Kupp and players like that due to injuries.
Well, Shakir's already injured this year. That's what I'm more saying. I mean, I know these guys. Some of those guys are injury prone to their label, but
how serious is this injury?
It was a. Hold on, I'll look it up real quick here. Hold on.
Yeah, I'll talk about somebody else real quick. I like Deebo a lot. It's really funny, man. Cliff Kingsbury. And I don't think anybody realizes this. I wish that I still had my show, because I would have talked about this since day 1 of Cliff Kingsbury acquiring Deebo Samuel. Because Cliff Kingsbury used to be the coach of the Arizona Cardinals, right? And he sat there and he watched Deebo destroy him week after week after week. And he tried his damnedest to find the next Deebo Samuel. He drafted wide receiver after wide receiver. Rondale Moore was supposed to be the next Deebo, right? You guys remember that?
Yeah, out for the season for him too.
Yeah, that sucks. I was really rooting for that guy. I liked him when he came out of college, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. But Deebo, finally, Deebo himself graces Cliff Kingsbury with his presence. And Cliff Kingsbury has to be rock hard right now, right? Like, he is so stoked that he gets to run Deebo wherever he wants to. He tried doing that so hard in Arizona in that spread offense, and he could not find the guy to be that dude that could operate the way that he wanted to operate, and now he has his guy. So as long as Deebo can stay healthy, by the way, as long as he can stay healthy, I think Deebo is going to have a monster season. I think he's going to be wide receiver 1 type potential if he can stay healthy. I love drafting Deebo in this round. I'm doing it left and right. But I also like Reed as well. Reed is in a great spot. Last year, he started out the season for like the first 4 weeks of the season as the wide receiver 1, and then something got all funky, and they stopped utilizing it for some reason. It was the weirdest thing.
I think Jordan Love just was not 100%, and they just stayed.
Yeah, he was hurt. Yeah. But I mean, Reed is shown us that he can do it, right?
Any concern that Reed's in a walking boot?
No, because everybody's hurt.
I'm just throwing it out there. People might want to
You want to hear what I'm about to say next? Juwan
Shakir's-
Jennings. I love Juwan Jennings.
He's hurt
too.
And he wants a new contract.
Yeah.
And he wants a new he's not going to get a new contract. But
No.
he'll play, and he'll be fine. And he's shown that he can go off when he's the focal point of this offense, which no wide receiver can stay healthy for the 49ers. So we're going to see Juwan Jennings get peppered with targets. I love him there. I like Jacoby Myers. I think Jacoby Myers could end up having a great I mean, I literally like everybody on here. Who's number 8?
Number 8 is Stephon Diggs.
I like Diggs too. Diggs has fallen to the 8th round. It's awesome. And I have never drafted Stephon Diggs in a single league in my entire life. I had him in one best ball league that I ended up getting through a trade, like a blockbuster trade, and he was just part of the package. So I took him and I flipped him before the season started. I have never had Stephon Diggs as part of my roster. I will have him on a ton of my rosters for redraft this year.
Okay.
The only guy that I don't love. I'm not huge on Cooper Kupp this season. I think that he could be fine, but he's not going to see the same level that we've seen from him in the past. And then Ricky Pearsall makes me nervous because he's so hit or miss, like last year. Like he had games that he crushed it, and then he had games where he left you with like literally 0 fantasy points, and he played for the majority of the game.
He got shot last year. He was probably nervous being out there.
He heard the crack of the football helmets and hit the ground. No, I think Ricky Pearsall, out of anybody on this list, makes me the most nervous, but I like everybody on this list.
That's fair. Coach Tyler, what about you on the flip side? You know, who maybe Ricky Pearsall makes you the most nervous, but who makes you nervous drafting in this range here?
Yeah. Gosh, really both 49ers, honestly. We see just day after day in camp the continued, I guess, just curse of the 49ers. They're just all injured all the time.
Whole running back boards.
It's, I feel like I started playing fantasy about 15 years ago, I think. And I feel like since I had consciousness and what I was genuinely doing in fantasy, the 49ers were always a factory of outstanding but injured players. And I feel like that's just continued. And now we look at it going through the offseason, and it's continuing. And so I get kind of scared off of both of them just for the sake of who they are with. Not to say that I'm not drafting a ton of George Kittle this year. Hopefully he can stay healthy. We'll knock on wood on that one. But one that kind of scares me is Stephon Diggs. I look at Stephon Diggs, and I'm on the flip side of Chase. He's been on a lot of my teams throughout a lot of history. He's been on my teams since he was in Minnesota. He was on my teams with the Bills. He was on my team last year with Houston. But I want to say he's 31 years old, coming off of a torn ACL. I know, camp reports and videos that we're seeing.
Have you seen those videos? He's looking damn good.
Well, I don't know what he was taking on that boat in Miami right before training camp.
32 years old this year.
Yeah, but the age and injury factor scares me. I have spoken very highly of the Patriots offense. I think they are going to take a step forward, and at this point, looking at the fantasy community, I don't think they'll surprise anyone unless they are the number 2 offense in the league. But I think they're going to take a step forward. It just scares me to trust Diggs coming off of last year where, obviously he was playing alongside Nico Collins for a little bit, still had a couple big games. But just the age and injury mix, I don't know if I want to be the one holding the grenade when it goes off.
That's fair. Okay. This is definitely a very interesting group of wide receivers here. And I feel like these overall 3 groupings is that you're going to get some quality players throughout them, whether wide receiver 2s or flex options or even a strong end to your bench spots here. There's a lot of good players to go after.
Hey, Tyler, real quick, I'm going to rank the guys. I'm curious where you have these guys. I got Debo 1, DJ Reed 2, Clear Shakir 3, Juwan Jennings 4, Stephon Diggs. I'll give Stephon Diggs 5. Jacoby Myers, Cooper Kupp, Ricky Pearsall.
I feel like you're insanely low on Jacoby Myers on this. Been a wide receiver 2 the last 2 seasons with absolute dog crap at quarterback, and now they make an upgrade to Geno. I know they added Besh and Deontay Thornton, but I arguably have Jacoby Myers as the number 1 coming out of this group. I like Debo. I'd move him down to 2 under Jacoby Myers just because he's a little bit older, a little bit fatter. And we saw him sort of start to slow down a little bit in San Francisco. Not to say he's not still a good athlete.
I don't know if he ever sped up. He was just, puttering the whole time.
We'll see if there's a new transmission on him in Washington. But I have Jacoby Myers as my number 1 out of this group. He was the one that I was going to target if I got the positive side of all this. But I just look at his consistent production with dog crap and not overly efficient coaching. And now you get a, known offensive coach who is going to want to run the ball with Genty and Raheem Mostert. But I think Myers is still undoubtedly the number 1 receiver, not the number 1 in the offense. Obviously, I think Bowers takes that title by just a couple targets. But I like Myers the most out of this group.
I actually have Myers as my wide receiver 1 in terms of these guys right now, looking at my rankings.
Really?
Yep, I got Myers, Diggs, Jennings, Pearsall, Debo, Shakir, Reed, Kupp. That's how mine's set up currently right now.
This is where Myers scares me off, right? And we can punt it after this talk. But like last year, he was wide receiver 2. He only had 3 finishes of a wide receiver 1, right? But his targets, albeit not great targets, right? But he saw 9 targets. Like this is from week 3 on. 9 targets, 10 targets, 9, 7, 11, 6, 15, 11, 10, 9, 5, 9, and 10. I mean, that's an insane amount of targets. And there is no way that a Pete Carroll team is going to target a running back. I mean, not a running back. I'm sorry, a wide receiver that quantity of times when there are just other options like Brock Bowers. Like if we're going to assume that Jacoby Myers is a wide receiver 2, right, or maybe wide receiver 1, and he's going to have to get an insane amount of targets because he's not efficient with the ball in his hands. He's great at getting open, right? But like he's not a yards after the catch guy. He's not a yak guy. I'm not saying that he's bad, but he's just he's average, right? So at this point, for him to be a wide receiver 2, that's gonna push Brock Bowers' targets down by probably 20 to 30 less this upcoming season in order for Jacoby Myers to get there. I just have a hard time seeing it. I think that Brock Bowers will be the focal point of the offense, him and Genty. So I have a hard time. I can't see the volume. I think that he'll be fine. I still like him. I can't get there.
So I look at Geno Smith's time, his last 2 years with Pete Carroll because, obviously played last year without Pete Carroll at the helm. But his last 2 seasons being 17 and 15 games had 572 and 499 attempts passing wise. And that's Pete Carroll as the head coach. And so I think that there is the world. Obviously, everyone wants to, match made in heaven. Ashton Genty's going to a Pete Carroll offense. But at the same time, I see continuity with the quarterback and, the quarterback and the head coach to say there has been, in very recent history, those were the last 2 years that Pete Carroll was the head coach in Seattle, that he'll let Geno rip it. And obviously, I would assume that Brock Bowers is the number 1 target getter on this offense. But if he's throwing the ball 500 plus times, then there's 100% this. Not going to say that he's going to get 11 to 15 targets a game, but you throw in a little bit of target regression with the addition of guys like Thornton and Besh, and I still think Jacoby Myers could easily hit his target number from last year, albeit maybe missing a couple targets a game just because there's a few more like genuine capable mouths to feed.
Yeah. 572. I mean, that's what 30, 34, 35 passing attempts per game. I was trying to do the math in my head. I probably should have just used the calculator on the screen. Anyways, I think that's like 35 targets a game or so, 30, 34. Which if we say that Brock Bowers ends up with 10 a game, right? So that will fill us down to 23. And then you assign about 20 or about 30% to, random independent people, which is another 10, right? So now we're at 13. That means that Jainty is only going to get 3 targets a game, right?
Mm.
And then Jacoby Myers ends up with the 10 that he needs in order to get there. There's other wide receivers, right? There's other aspects where I can't find myself. I think the Brock Bowers will have more than 10 targets a game, and I can't get Geno to that passing attempt point to be able to see that. But anyways,
I mean, if you look at even if Meyer loses like 20 targets, if you look at his 23 numbers, 800 yards and 8 touchdowns, you're looking at I think it was wide receiver 26 points per game, 25 per game. I mean, they're going to score more under Geno. This offense is going to do better than what they showed last year. I mean, Aiden O'Connor showed us how bad the Raiders were last year in their preseason game. I mean, you have to assume that their offense is going to be a little bit better. They might be in more, not shootouts, but still coming from behind situations where, Aiden O'Connell to Geno Smith, the upgrade is definitely there to some extent. So if you're listening in, if you thought we were going to talk about Jacoby Myers this much, I love it. And now you know who. Now you have an idea who to draft when it comes to Jacoby Myers or not draft. So
who's the wide receiver 2 on that team now? Is it
Trey Tucker?
Yeah,
Trey Tucker or Thornton or Besh, I guess whoever.
God, Thornton's the starter right now.
They like.
Oh my God, Colin Johnson. Colin Johnson is the second string left wide receiver. That's awesome. I love Colin Johnson.
Chase loves Colin Johnson. I know that.
You remember that shit?
I remember that shit. Yeah.
Oh man, when he went off at the Hall of Fame game last year. Oh my God.
That's who it was. I was talking about the Hall of Fame game last year, and I couldn't remember who the guy for the Bears was that went off against the Texans, but I remember it being
3 quarters.
It was a whole story on Hard Knocks. Like they dug into that so deep, and I don't even think he made the team.
No, he got hurt again.
He gets hurt so much.
Yeah, he he is like a 6'8" freaking twig, pretty much. So no, he went off in 3 quarters. He caught like 150 yards and like 3 touchdowns or something stupid, like in 3 quarters because the game got stormed out.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't even play the first quarter. He did that pretty much in 2 quarters. Yeah, Colin Johnson could be the greatest wide receiver of all time. He just never got his opportunity.
No, he did not. All right, let's get over to the last section of the night, guys. Tight ends. These mid-round tight ends, you have T.J. Hawkinson, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Evan Ingram, David Njoku. Basically the guys that 3 years ago were probably in the top half, including George Kittle at the time. All in the top half.
Gross.
There's a lot of older guys who I think you're looking at name value when it comes to a lot of these guys here. Chase, I'll let you kind of go with the negative aspect on it because you said they're gross. I'm going off your attitude when it comes to these. So, do you want to take any one of these guys, or would you just rather go with the top guys? Would you rather wait then and just avoid these guys?
So all right, I don't hate these guys, but like there's other players I'd much rather draft in this section that at other positions rather than put my bet on these tight ends outside of Evan Ingram, because I think Evan Ingram could see 150 targets this year. Maybe not 150, but he could probably see 120 targets this upcoming season very easily. Hawkinson coming back from injury, his efficiency could be through the roof, but he's probably not going to get the volume that we would like. Travis Kelce, said that he lost some weight and he's looking better. He didn't look like he lost weight in Happy Gilmore. Still looked like he had some pounds on him. I'm never a Mark Andrews guy. I never have been. And, I ate crow for a couple of different seasons. But, dude, wasn't he, like, solely reliant on touchdowns last year? Like, touchdowns were, like, half of his fantasy points or something absurd.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not half, but, like, there's no other tight end in the league. There's never been a tight end that can do that 2 years in a row. that doesn't have volume, in the receiving game.
So his highest game, not a single one of his games got over 70 yards, and he had just 2 games with 5 receptions in them. He had 6 straight touchdowns the end of season.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, he's solely reliant on touchdowns.
From week 6 on, he only had missed. There were only 2 games that he didn't score from week 6 on.
That's crazy.
So he was a touchdown machine last year. No Isaiah Likely maybe to start the season though.
Huh? What's up?
Said maybe no Isaiah Likely to start the season. He could be on the pump.
Yeah, but they play on the field at the same time. I mean, Mark Andrews is still getting 75% snap share, and he's not a run blocker, so he's not in on a lot of the big time, play packages for that reason. But yeah, I mean, I would much like. All right, I like Evan Ingram a lot, just due to straight volume. Outside of that, I'd rather punt the tight end at this point and wait to get a guy like Brenton Strange, where we know that he's going to produce because we saw it last year, and his job only got easier. Like with Travis Hunter coming in, we know that Brenton Strange is going to see 6, 7, 8 targets a game. There's not enough value to be had for any one of the players on the screen outside of Evan Ingram to make me want to pick a guy that's 15 rounds ahead of a guy like Brenton Strange who can still get me, startable fantasy weeks. So that's where I stand on it. I think Evan Ingram is a stud, though, as long as he can stay healthy, of course.
That's right. All right, Coach Tyler, over to you. Let's finish this up. Who do you like in this range here? Is there someone that you would like to take if you could?
Yeah, I am in on Evan Ingram. We talked about kind of the additions to the Denver offense. I really think he slots in easily as the second target getter there, if not possibly the first, if he just has another insane season like he had a couple years ago in Jacksonville. I'm going to go out on a limb. I think that Mark Andrews is going to surprise a lot of people. I think a lot of people recognize his touchdown dependency last season. I think a lot of people remember his drop in the playoffs. But you look at kind of how he entered the season, right? Entered training camp injured, and then was supposed to be healthy, supposed to be back at camp, and then got in a car wreck to really kind of start the season. And so you looked at it in week 1, Isaiah Likely has his insane boom game, and everyone's like, oh, Mark Andrews is old news. He's not the tight end for this team anymore. Car crash did it for him. He ended it. But we saw, I think, the most out of everything with his numbers last year, that he's still very much a guy that Lamar looks to when things matter, right? There's a reason he's the guy who had the drop at the very end of their playoff game, right? It wasn't Zay Flowers. It wasn't Isaiah Likely. It wasn't any running back.
It might be now, though.
It might be. But, even the Ravens have come out since then all offseason and going into camp and saying, we still believe in Mark Andrews. We still trust him. I know there were trade rumors going around the draft. But he is still 100% Lamar's guy in my eyes. I'm not saying he hasn't lost a step because he's been in the league about a decade at this point. But I think people are very much undervaluing him because so much of his production came from touchdowns last year. But at the same time, you look at most of his production and it came in the back half of the season. It came after he had some time to kind of get right because we had injuries going into camp. We had a car crash that messed with something in it. I want to say it was his fibula or something in his leg. Like, there's things that they were big in the moment, but flew under the radar as we look at the first half or second half of the season now. And I think that he is still 100% one of Lamar's guys. Not to say he's going to, have this resurgence and be the tight end one, but we can't project out touchdowns like that. But this Ravens offense didn't really get any worse over the offseason. And I honestly think that his touchdown numbers are repeatable considering how much Lamar Jackson trusts him.
He's only had one healthy season in the past 5 years, by the way, which is it's always my knock against Mark Andrews. It's like you're going to draft a guy, you need him to play all 16, 17 games, of the fantasy season. If you're going that high on a guy. And Mark Andrews, I don't want to have to pick up another tight end because I know that Mark Andrews is going to end up having 4, 5, 6 games where he's going to be injured throughout the season. And the thing is like he'll play hurt, but during those games where he plays hurt, he sucks. Like the team doesn't look his way at all. Like it's like they know that he's hurt and he's out there to be a decoy. And so you're not just missing the games where he's out, you're missing the games where he's hurt. It used to be the same way with Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett would go off and have these amazing games, and then he would get hurt halfway through the season, and the team would keep him out there, and he would play, but he would go from putting up, these 20, 25, 30-point games to putting up 1 or 2 points because he was out there playing, but he was hurt, and the team just used him as a decoy. And I feel like that is what happens with Mark Andrews, and it really screws you over.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just quick 2 guys before we wrap up here. I do like T.J. Hockenson. I know he's a little bit earlier on the board there, but no Jordan Addison for 3 games at least, and Hockenson, another year removed away from his massive injury, and he wasn't that great last year, but he also didn't really score any touchdowns to really help his case at the end of at the second half of that season last year. So another year healthier. Hopefully he can kind of get back to what he was, because he's good prior to his injury in Minnesota. And then David Njoku, we talked about Jerry Jeudy not being that good. Well, Joe Flacco's got to throw the ball to somebody, and he threw the ball very well with David Njoku on the field. Mari Cooper was there back then. So David Njoku in round 8, 9, if you want to stay with the the name brand tight end, as long as he stays healthy. And I know Chase doesn't like not healthy players, and I get it.
I don't mind it.
Good.
I just don't want it at the tight end position.
That's fair.
Because I don't want to have to roster 2 tight ends.
That's
I don't care about injuries at wide receiver. I don't care about injuries at any other one. But if I'm drafting a guy at a limited position, right, where I just need fantasy points, I either want to keep one tight end that I can, change out throughout the season, right? Like I can play the waivers, right. Or I want to have a guy who I know is solid if I'm going to draft a guy in the first, we'll say, I don't know, 7, 8, even 10 rounds. I want to make sure that guy's out there every time. I don't want to roster 2 tight ends.
No, that's absolutely fair. I get it. I respect it. But again, David Njoku looked really good that second half of the season with Joe Flacco as well. Again, there's definitely potential there if you don't like thinking that Jerry Jeudy or Cedric Tillman are going to take that next step or continue that next step in their NFL career of being productive. So. But that is going to wrap us up for the night. Chase, my friend, always a fantastic guest having you on the show, brother. If there's anything you want to say or mention, the floor is yours, my friend.
TrophySmack.com, the coolest place to get all your fantasy football championship gear. Now, I don't do the content as much anymore. I've taken a little turn with my life and everything that's going on, and Trophy Smack has keeping me slam-packed busy. It's been nuts, man. I've got 4 conferences to go to. I talked to the National Turkey Association today. Oh, sure. Did you know there's 6 different types of, breeds of turkey in the North American continent?
Did not know that. No.
Yeah, I learned that today by talking to them. But it's cool. They're gonna end up doing 1,100 belts for their awards and stuff. So yeah, it's cool. I get to do all sorts of fun stuff that's different. But my favorite thing is working with these kids in the 7-on-7 leagues. I get to watch these studs come out. Like Ryan Williams, I saw him play when he was 15, and I'm like, dude, this kid is different, man. This kid is sick. And then we see him now at Alabama as a freshman, going and catching these, what was it, a 70-yard game-winning touchdown, where he threw the guy right off. But that's my favorite thing now to do is watch these rookies before they even get to college. And being able to kind of cement my opinions of rookies coming out before anybody even knows who they are. Go to my Twitter 3 years ago or 2 years ago. I talked about how Ryan Williams was going to be different. So it's cool, man. I really enjoy it. So if you guys have a fantasy football league or, you're it could be for work, right? It could be for literally any occasion. Go to TrophySmack.com and grab yourself some championship gear. It's worth it.
I know I have one sitting over there, so.
Yeah, freaking won our league, man.
Sure did. That's all thanks to you.
Yeah, oh no, did I lose to you in the semifinals?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Not the
Me-
was it the final? No, because I
Not the
traded you
finals.
the
Yeah,
assets
you-
to the finals.
Yeah. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Coach Tyler, anything you want to mention before we head out?
Yeah, my league actually just got a Trophy Smack trophy delivered. I think
go.
last week, and so I will be receiving that very soon. But no, go check out Trophy Smack. Go check out DynastyNerds.com. Me and Coach Steve talk about it every show. That's where we met. We both do stuff for them over there. They have a ton of great tools for you. A lot of great articles and podcasts coming out as you're preparing for the season. For you Dynasty players, they have great tools like the Dynasty GM. Look at where you stack up
I
against your
love
league.
that app.
It's so good. But look at where you stack up against your league in terms of dynasty and in terms of, your contender, how you are right now to go compete for a trophy. Or you could go spend a lot of time where I spend time, and that's in the Dynasty Film Room. Our editors do a great job over there, cutting up really anyone that you'd want to see for 2026 class. They're already getting to work on that. And then I want to say there's some 2027s in there if they're good enough. And so go check out DynastyNerds.com. Use code COACH when you get over there. Let them know that we sent you. And thank you all for listening.
Absolutely, guys. And, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, guys, whether it's live on our YouTube channel at The Fantasy Coaches or if it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if you're listening to us afterwards just on audio. Apparently now you can do video on Spotify now, so that's kind of cool. So you can also check us out via video on Spotify. I don't know about Apple Podcasts, but on Spotify you can watch our YouTube videos now as well if you want to see our amazing slideshow we do every week. But we'll be back next Monday. We're going to be talking about the late rounds, some maybe diamonds in the rough that we can try to help you guys out for your fantasy draft this year. But until then, guys, thank you all for listening. Tune in until next time, everyone, and have a great one.
Back to back is not far-fetched. We got